They never talk about how hard it is just to say your name, just to introduce yourself, and how awkward that feels and is. And anyway, today I want to talk about what it's like to travel with film gear and what are some of the things that you can do to prepare for projects that you have that might require you to get on an airplane and travel for longer distances. So in my last video that I made, I talked about how I was traveling to Dallas, and that was a really nerve-wracking experience for me, not only because it's like it's a pretty legit kind of project, but I also had to travel, which, to be honest, was the thing I was most worried about. I have these nightmares, as I'm sure people have, doing this. You have expensive equipment. So what happens if it breaks? What happens if it gets confiscated? What if I lose something en route? How am I gonna pay for baggage, $250 for a bag, flight? That's just all overwhelming. Well, luckily there are ways that you can get around that without, having to budget in, an organ to travel. And I want to talk about just some of the things that I did ahead of time to prepare for filming what ended up being pretty much a run and gun, scrappy, minimal kind of production, just with myself and a couple people helping on the ground. So if you've ever traveled and you've ever tried to travel with a carry-on, you know that if you go over the 50-pound limit, it gets very expensive very fast. Like it's really easy for your luggage to be $250 just one way, especially if you're traveling with film gear, tripods, light stands, lights, wires, cables, equipment, lenses, batteries, all of that. It gets super heavy, super fast. And for most consumers, most typical people that are just traveling on an airplane, yeah, that cost is expensive. However, there is a secret that's not so secret, that journalists, photographers, videographers, people who travel with production gear can use so that they're not having to sell their firstborn child to ship their shit across the country. And the trick to do is to get yourself a press pass. Now, I always thought that a press pass needed to be like stamped by, I don't know, the Washington Post or New York Times or a media outlet. Well, it turns out that most airlines will accept just a press pass that looks like a press pass. And I had a lot of shaky confidence and ahead of time, but I had journalist after journalist after journalist tell me that no, legit, you can literally just go on Zazzle and make a press pass and it'll pass. And let me tell you, it passed. I had nobody question anything about my integrity with this and was just boom. And so that took the cost of me transporting a bag of shit that weighed 70 pounds and was like 5 feet long from being $250 one way to $50 flat. That's it. And that's the difference of traveling with a $500 just for one bag, round trip price versus $100, which is so much easier to put onto the bill for the client than having to like cut into your margin for what you're making on this shoot. That was like a big relief. For me, that opens up a lot of pathways of traveling and shooting for projects that I've kind of just not pursued so much because of what is that cost and how to do it. Getting yourself a simple press pass literally just changed everything. And like, you can look at mine, there's nothing special about mine. It has, it says media on it, it says my name, it says when it expires, and I did this via a template on Zazzle.com. So shout out to Zazzle, I guess. So that was number one, was just like the expense of it. And how do I put, like, if I'm working on a low budget, I don't want $500 in my budget to go just to getting the shit there. So the second thing was just like traveling with equipment. And to be fair, the airline websites, the FAA, the TSA, none of these entities make it really clear as to what you are allowed to bring on the airplane. If you look at, like, for example, I took American Airlines, and according to the American Airlines rule book, you're only allowed 4 batteries, 4 lithium ion batteries in total. Like, in total, doesn't matter the size. Like, and if you're traveling with a cinema camera, like I'm using my Ursa, I've got V-mount batteries, and for a full day's production, I need 4 of those. That's not counting a monitor, it's not counting extra spares, it's literally 4 batteries, that's it. And so you're thinking like, what the hell? Like, what is this rule? So I ended up calling American Airlines and calling TSA and calling the FAA, I don't know what the FAA stands for, and all of them gave me conflicting answers. TSA told me that basically it doesn't matter, you just can't have them in your luggage. American Airlines told me that you could only have 4, and the person I spoke to wasn't exactly helpful. So I was really kind of just gambled with what I could bring. Turns out when I went to the airport and actually checked in my bag, I had this, of course, I was nervous as shit that something was gonna go wrong. So I am opening my bag and I'm explaining to the attendant there that I have, all these batteries, I'm a production person, I need, them to power my camera, and they looked at me like, it's totally fine. There's no limit to the batteries. So it seems like there's like a lot of confusion online, but know that I checked both ways with the attendants and nobody told me anything about a battery limit, at least on the ground. So I think that that's fine. If I could change that, I would have definitely brought more batteries. I had 2 on my monitor and whatever. Ends up I was fine. Just keep in mind that a lot of that information is confusing, is conflicting, and it kind of feels like nobody really knows what's going on. I'd say just prepare for that. Call the airline ahead of time, talk to people that maybe in this field have traveled for video before and know kind of what to expect. But overall, like, I was totally fine with whatever lithium batteries I brought, so long as I wrapped them in a plastic bag, put them in my carry-on, and just had all of my lithium with me on the plane. The third thing I'd say is, like I hinted in the last one, is pre-production. Traveling on a low budget, I wasn't able to stay a week. I also couldn't miss work. So we traveled over the weekend, which meant that we had in total about 36 hours to actually film. And that's counting time that we were using sleeping. So, it was pretty tight in terms of what we had and what we could use and what we could stage and film and where to be. It required a ton of organization ahead of time and improvisation when things, inevitably don't work out. But none of that would have been possible if I had no plan for what I wanted. I hadn't, had an idea of a shot list, of imagery that I was going for, styles, things to shoot along the way, because every second counts, every minute counts, every hour counts, and every body that's there, you're gonna need that kind of flexibility when you're working in this space. Now, I guess it varies based on what your project is, but for this, we're shooting a campaign video, and there is another agency that's mediating kind of the final product. So giving them the most flexibility to appeal to their donors, to appeal to their audience, to appeal to the candidate itself and the platform that they have, you need a lot of crap. So I think we shot close to 2 terabytes worth of footage in that 36 hours, of course, making sure that I'm not shooting in the raw codec of Blackmagic, but using something that's easier to process and transport without somebody needing a certain decoder or anything like that. So ProRes is really great for that. And then just putting together an idea of what it could be, a final product or a draft product, and then shipping that footage off to them. But again, being able to have a storyboard that while I'm on the ground pretty much shooting shot for shot, so that the producers know what to expect, the agency knows what to expect, the candidate knows what to expect, and that everybody's had eyes on it, so that when I'm mentioning, hey, I need one of these, or hey, we need to get something that's like this, nobody's kind of caught off guard, and we've kind of all thought about it as a team for where we can go next. It was great. I'm so excited that now I've done this, I've had the experience, and I feel confident enough now to plan more shoots that are out of my state to travel. And as COVID starts to lift, hopefully, and travel becomes safer and more people are willing to travel and accept people who are traveling for work, I'm really looking forward to doing more of this and pitching my brand across the country, across the world, if that's even possible. So feels great. I feel like nobody ever talks about traveling. I feel like nobody ever talks about like what, it's just sort of this leap. So I'm hoping that this information is useful to you as you're thinking about how to travel. And I'm like, after the pandemic, I want to travel, and like traveling for work and being able to like pitch a project to somebody that can then offset the cost of me going from point A to point B. So hopefully this video was useful for you, and if it was, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let's travel. 2022 is gonna be the year of traveling. I don't know, hopefully. It's so hard to predict the future now, but that's what I'm hoping. All right, so thank you guys so much for watching, really appreciate it. And let me know what kind of travel plans you have for 2022 and what kind of projects you're working on. All right, bye.